Welcome to this session. I'm Teacher Peter, and in this session, I'm still taking you through science. Today in science, we are looking at light energy. We are still continuing with our topic of light energy, but particularly today, we want to look at the laws of reflection. We are looking at the laws of reflection. Let's begin with our first law of reflection. We are saying the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal ray all lie on the same plane at the point of incidence. The incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal ray all lie on the same plane at the point of incidence. Yes, like you can see in this diagram here, we have got the incident ray, we have got the normal ray, and we have got the reflected ray. Now, we are saying that all these three rays lie on the same plane. They lie on this plane here. At the point of incidence, this is the point of incidence, and it is marked with the letter O. Are we together? So we are saying that the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal ray all lie on the same plane at the point of incidence. That is our first law of reflection. Then the second law of reflection states that the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Let's look at this diagram here. We are looking at the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection, and we are saying the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection, meaning that angle AON is equal to angle NOB. Are we together? Let's continue. Let's look at the explanation for what I've just mentioned. We are saying that the ray of light which moves towards the surface of the mirror is the incident ray. The ray of light which moves towards the surface of the mirror is called the incident ray. Then we are saying that the normal is an imaginary line perpendicular to the reflecting surface. This one here, the normal ray is always drawn with dotted lines, meaning that it is just an imaginary ray. It is just an imaginary line. Are we together? Perpendicular to the reflecting surface. It is perpendicular to the reflecting surface, meaning that it forms an angle of 90 degrees. Are we together? To the reflecting surface. Let's go on. Then we are also saying that the angle of incidence is the angle between the normal and the incident ray. Yes, we are saying that the angle of incidence, this angle here, the angle of incidence is the angle between the normal and the incident ray. Let's continue. A ray of light which bounces off the reflecting surface is called the reflected ray. A ray of light which bounces off the reflecting surface is called the reflected ray. This one here, it is bouncing off. It is going off. It is going away from the reflected surface. So it is called the reflected ray. Then we are saying that the angle of reflection is the angle between the reflected ray and the normal. The angle of reflection is the angle between the reflected ray and the normal ray. So, this angle which is between the reflected ray, between this ray and the normal ray, this angle here, the angle between these two rays is what we are calling the reflected ray. No, the reflected angle, or the angle of reflection. Let's continue. The point of incidence is where the incident ray hits the mirror and where the reflected ray leaves the mirror. So this point here, at this point where the incidence ray hits the mirror and where the reflected ray leaves the mirror, It's the point where we call the point of incidence. So when you hear me talking about the point of incidence, I'm meaning this point here, where the incidence ray hits the mirror and where the reflected ray leaves the what? The mirror. At this point here, this is called the point of incidence, and I've marked it with the letter O. Let's go on. The angle between the incident ray and the surface is called the glancing angle. The angle between the incident ray and the surface is called the glancing angle. We are talking about this angle here. This angle, the angle between the incidence ray and the reflecting surface, or between the incidence ray and the surface, this angle here is called the glancing angle. So let's summarize this like this. AO is the incidence ray. So this line here, AO, we call it the incidence ray. Then line OB, O to B, gives us the reflected ray. Then line ON, I have my letter N here, it has been covered. So line ON, that line there, that is what we call the normal ray. Then let's look at this angle. Angle NOB. Angle NOB is the angle of reflection. Then angle AON. This is the angle of incidence. Are we together there? Let's look at these questions. Question number 1 says, write down 2 laws of reflection. The answers are there. Number 2 says, what ray is formed when light is reflected on a smooth surface? What ray is formed when light is reflected on a smooth surface? Then number 3 says, name angle AOB. Name angle AOB. That is in the pictures that I've been showing you. Then number 4, identify and name the angle of incidence in the diagram above. Identify and name the angle of incidence in the diagram above. So I expect you to draw a diagram showing the ray of the incidence ray, the reflected ray, and the normal ray, and I want you to identify and name the angle of incidence in the diagram. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Please go to the subscription button and click on it. By doing that, you'll be able to get all the latest videos we post on this channel. Please don't forget to subscribe. I wish you well. May God bless you.